Today we are going to talk about style. There are two types of problems related to style. One is the effect of personal writing habit. The second is the result of cultural differences between your mother tongue to your educational background on the one hand and English for academic purposes on the other. One of the most important aspects of language use is the appropriate use of modifiers. This is because it's in this way that you show your understanding of the value of the points you're making. In other words, you're showing your own real understanding on the issues. Look at these statements. Can you see how each one is inappropriate? The most common errors in the use of modifiers are overgeneralization, overemphasis or exaggeration, understatement, confusion. Modifiers should be used to make your writing accurate and thoughtful. They include adjectives, adverbs, modal verbs, phrases, and other parts of speech showing degree, emphasis, etc. As we know, overgeneralization is very common. To modify overgeneralized statements, it's generally necessary to reduce the scope of the statement by limiting the quantity or frequency or area involved. Here are just a few common modifiers for this: few, many, most, sometimes, often, frequently, generally, common, widespread. Here the problem is not to exaggerate the intensity of a statement. The writer's attitude should show a suitable degree of certainty. Degrees of intensity are expressed by terms such as rather, quite, significant, considerable, very, dramatic. Degrees of certainty can be shown by expressions such as maybe, perhaps, possible, definitely, undoubtedly, generally speaking, it's clear that. And all the modal verbs may, might, can, could, should, would, must, ought to. You can also use expressions that distance yourself from the statement, such as some people believe, it's generally agreed, according to most scientists, it is said that. And in conclusions, it is useful to modify your statements with these expressions. Therefore, it seems that it can be concluded that this indicates that certain verbs, for example, can also show varying degrees of strength of certainty. People are, tend to be. This suggests, this indicates, this proves. Something causes something. Something is a contributing factor to something. While overstatement and exaggeration are more common, some students go the other way and understate their case or produce mixed and confused signals. They usually occur when students mix some of the modifiers inappropriately. It's important to be very accurate in using modifiers. Otherwise, you can sound confused and unintelligent, like the example on this slide. Lack of ideas is likely to result in a badly written essay. That commonly happens is that the writer either needs to fill up the paper with empty, meaningless expressions, often referred to as a waffle, or there is a good deal of repetition of the same idea, or both. On this slide is an example of such a piece of writing. Many students appear to learn a basic structure and a few basic expressions and then attempt to apply these to every essay, no matter what the topic of the meaning. This can produce some strange result. Looking at the following examples of the slide of mindless writing. Then there are clichés, which are more commonly misused by native speakers of English, but some learners also think that they are writing good idiomatic English by using them. Clichés are expressions which have been overused in the language and are generally a sign of lazy thinking. The examples include each and every one, food for thoughts, at the end of the day, last but not least, without a doubt, as we know. It's better to avoid such sentences. Lack of vocabulary and limited knowledge of grammar are often causes of bad writing style. Many students have excellent ideas, but do not have sufficient vocabulary in English to express them. In such cases, some students simply use vocabulary incorrectly and become imprehensible, but more commonly students in this situation are likely to write in a much simpler style than is suitable for English for academic purposes. It is better to write simple, correct English than to try to write sophisticated English and do it badly. But of course, a university or college entry test essay should not sound as if it was written by someone in primary school. The style you should aim for school should be at least then a good year student writing their mother tongue. Consider the following example. There are no mistakes in the grammar of this example, but it's clearly not the way a university student would be expected to write. One of the major problems that COM students face is that their previous experience in writing has been in a style which is not similar to that expected in their test essays. This may be because the type of writing they have done before is different, or the style of writing valued by the mother tongue culture differs from the style expected in English. An essay is not like a letter, or a debate, or political speech, or a textbook. You need to be aware of the difference in style that each requires. More difficult to deal with the differences between writing styles in different cultures. For example, Japanese students seem to value short, simple sentences, often beginning with and, but, or so. Iranians, on the other hand, seem to have a traditional of valuing quite complex sentence structures with very long subjects. The following is an adaptation of Iranian students' writing. An Asian language such as Chinese, Korean, and Thai is also often preferable to have the main idea expressed in noun phrases at the beginning of the sentence, rather like in the above example. Unfortunately, this not only sounds worked in English, but it's also extremely difficult to write such complex sentences in correct English. The original sentence was full of grammatical errors. The way to avoid this is to turn the sentence back to another way of solving the problem is to encourage and provide suitable conditions for the use of public vehicles instead of private ones. It is not possible to give one kind of advice about style to all students. Many textbooks on essay writing for native speakers encourage students to make their sentences less complex. This is because there is a tendency for typical English speaking school levels to try to put too much into one sentence. However, if you're not a native speaker, this advice may not be appropriate for you unless you too or writing to put too much into one sentence. Repetition of words and phrases is another issue to consider. While in some languages repetition is used a great deal and quite acceptably, such as Indonesian, for example, in English repetition is not highly valued, and writers make great effort to avoid it.